back on Born Before 64, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Max Schuette, who was a Air Force pilot on the B-24.
Yes.
And we're sharing his experiences today about what it was like to be in World War II. And before the break, we just started talking about that. Can you give us some of the experiences you had with the soldiers that were your brothers during that period of time?
Okay, the D-Day occurred in June of 1944, and I was still in the States, and I was very young, of course, and I was afraid
18, 19?
Well, I was just turned 20.
Just turned 20.
And D-Day in 44, and being very young, I was afraid I was going to miss the war.
You were afraid you were going to miss it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Did you get drafted?
Oh no.
No?
No, I enlisted. They didn't draft people into the Air Force. They were all volunteers because they had, well, they had very high standards.
Right.
And you had to want to be there, and so you had to pass all the physical and mental tests.
And have you flown before you?
No.
No.
After I signed up in Chicago, I was at the University of Chicago. Mm-hmm. I flew home on the United Airlines plane, and that was the first time I'd ever been up in a plane.
Right. So what gave you the wonderful desire to become a pilot?
Oh, it just very romantic. I mean, that just seemed like the thing to do. And
right. What you don't know is that I love to fly, and you can see me up on our Born Before 64 flying a small plane.
Yeah.
And the funny part, I have to share this with you because I'm terrified of turbulence. And here I am in this plane, and it's just shaking like crazy.
Yeah.
And you know, I thought during a calm, hot day, there wouldn't be turbulence.
Yeah.
Did that bother you?
No, I really didn't. If it got real bad, it worried me, yeah.
Did you go through a lot of snow and ice and weather?
Well, you had, when you get to altitude, you get ice. You have de-icers on the leading edge of the plane, the B-24 at any rate, and the de-icers flake the ice away. But it's very cold at altitude, and we didn't have any heat in the airplane. We had electric flying suits that we connected next to our positions, and they kept us warm, but the plane itself was icy cold, and there was no oxygen. We had to wear oxygen masks.
Wow.
And we had to periodically, the pilot or co-pilot would periodically check every position in the airplane to make sure everybody was connected to their oxygen and were operating. But the specific dangers that we ran into, as I mentioned before, were equipment failure, as well as weather problems and enemy action. And the enemy action at that time was ground-based anti-aircraft. So we were hit many times by the anti-aircraft. We had, our intelligence had most of the flak areas designated on our maps, but they could move those flak guns around on trains, and we would be surprised at that. One day we were up, and our leader, squadron leader, was hit by a undesignated flak area and was killed. The But that was the big danger: equipment failure, the ground fire, and then, well, pilot error in a lot of cases. One day we were flying over Vienna, Berlin, Munich were three of the heaviest targets in Europe. We were based in southern Italy, so we didn't get to Berlin, but Munich and Vienna were major targets for us. And over Vienna one day, we got hit by flak, and I had a heavy pressure on my leg, and a piece of flak had come through at my radio jack box position, and I thought I was really wounded, but it stung.
But you didn't get hurt.
But I didn't get hurt, and that was true many times. We were hit by flak and took.
Well, what happens to when you get hit by flak to the actual aircraft? Does it depressurize?
No, the aircraft was not pressurized in any event. It doesn't do any damage unless it hits a critical part. It hits one of the engines, and the flak burst is a big black ball with all these pieces of metal spreading out in a circle. And in a bomb run, you would have what's called the initial point, where you would start the bomb run, and then everybody would know the heading that they were going to be on. They hit the target, and of course, when you hit the initial point and then started in a certain direction, the Germans could tell where you were going to go, and would send up as much flak as they could.
So these were bombs that actually, when they exploded, they had pieces that were coming out.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were 78 millimeter shells, and different sizes of shells, and they could be set to explode at a certain altitude.
Okay.
Or they would explode on impact of the airplane. And so that was our main equipment failure, anti-aircraft fire, and weather. We'd get in weather, and that would cause a lot of problems.
And on that note, we need to take another short break, and we'll be right back on Born Before 64 after these messages.